It's showtime. We're live. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. We are going to be talking about lumpers, everybody's favorite. You know how much you love lumpers, but we've got a guy that's got some experience in that warehousing world, and I think maybe we can get some perspective out of this and maybe help us not be so quite so angry when we're dealing with the lumpers and the warehouses.
He's pretty.
Um, Real quick before we get started, I want to remind everybody about our promo code for $50 off and free shipping of OPS units, good till May 30th. So you got 15 more days to take advantage. Go to the website to the store, put in OPS 108 at checkout, and you will get $50 off and free shipping on OPS unit install kit. Is that 2 filters and 2 kits or 3 filters and 2 kits?
Well, it's 3 filters and 2 kits, yeah.
Okay.
And it's only good through us. You can't call Pittsburgh Power and get that. So
Yeah. I want to remind you about our mentoring services. If you are a BCO or about to become a BCO and you would like to help reduce your learning curve, go fill out this form and let us know what you're doing. We've got a few people in that now, and hopefully you guys will be hearing from them soon. July 16th and 17th, Hurricane West Virginia, Hurricane, as we call it. Reset Your Mindset 2022. I should have that up on the website this week. We'll have an event page. You can pay all the money, details, hotel information, all that stuff will be there. But that will be Saturday and Sunday, July 16th and 17th in Hurricane. We're going to have 50 to 75 probably. It's going to be a pretty good deal. Really looking forward to that. And we have trucks available. So if you've been thinking about coming and joining the program and getting in a blue ribbon truck, now is the time because we've got a few available. So just go to drive4blueribbon.com, fill out the form, give us your contact information. We'll set up a Zoom interview and see if you are right for the program. And I guess without further ado, would you like to introduce our guest? You kind of
Sure.
know him a little bit better than I do.
Yeah, I know a little bit about him. So those of you that may not know, I have 2 Chris's that they're in my life. You all know one of them here. This guy that I have to put up with every Sunday night. But I also have another one that I've actually personally, with the help of my bride, raised to the, let's see, how old is he now? 38. So we're at an undisclosed location somewhere in the western suburbs of Chicago at a place we intimately call the Bourbon Barn. And there are legends that have been made here. There are legends waiting to be made. And without further ado, I would like to introduce my son, Chris Long. You guys may have heard in the past, his initials are CDL, which is, I guess, an omen because nowhere in my life did I ever think I would be in the trucking business, and certainly wouldn't have named my son after it. But it just turned out that way, so we kind of play with that. But Chris is, he's my pride and joy, and he's the person that gave me my nickname of the serial entrepreneur. And just by the way, the most recent Landstar podcast, I think it's episode 21, just released yesterday, and the title of it is The Serial Entrepreneur, and it's my story. And they played, whatever the word is, they honored Chris's title of me as the title of the episode. So if you'd like to listen to that, it's 26 minutes, and it was. Listen, they cut it drastically. It was a lot. It was like 50 minutes when we did it, but they found reasons for somehow to trim some of it out. I can't imagine why, but I did get a couple of calls from Landstar Legal asking a few questions, so I'm supposing that that's probably some of it. But and Chris Polk, you don't know this, but before they released it on Saturday morning, they texted me or they emailed me and said, "Are you sure that Chris P will be okay with us talking about his rough start last start?" And I said, I can assure you, he's okay with that. So
Yeah.
anyway, I don't think I told you that, but so my son Chris is a is it senior vice president? Am I giving you the right title? He's a big shot, okay, with a very very large warehousing services company. They have a very big market share in that segment, and it was kind of ironic that we both ended up in the logistics business on opposite ends, really, of the spectrum. As a driver and as a truck owner, that word lumper was the bane of our existence. Nobody wanted to go to a food warehouse and have to sit and go through all that crap and then pay good money to have your truck. In some cases, more money than we made to haul the load to unload it. And so, but seeing the other side of it and knowing enough about what he does and what we talk about, I thought it would be interesting for us to get him to provide us the other side of the story. We always, as truck drivers, we look at things only through our perspective, and sometimes that needs to be balanced with the real world. And so we thought tonight would be an opportunity. We planned on doing this a few weeks back, but logistics didn't work out. And so we had to reschedule. But I've been up here all weekend for my youngest granddaughter's birthday. And so we thought we'd take advantage of us being in the same place and do it tonight. So, Chris, welcome to the podcast. Tell us a little bit about, how you got started in this field and how listen, he's very humble and very, he'll understate everything, but he has been a juggernaut in this business. I mean, the guy went from nothing, from working in the cold storage and unloading stuff to now senior vice president of a big company. So, Chris, the floor is yours.
I don't know if I can meet those expectations, but no, it's good to be here. I'm 37 for the record.
Sorry.
I need every year. So, but no, it's fun. This is exciting. I didn't think we'd be videotaping in the barn anytime soon. So,
isn't the barn beautiful? Look behind him. What a magnificent backdrop of all Kentucky bourbons back there. So, Chris is what they officially call a bourbon snob, by the way. So,
yeah, that apple didn't fall far from the tree.
No,
That's
he's
not
waiting.
true.
I'm not anywhere in his league. Okay, so
I appreciate a lot of different bourbons.
he does. That's true.
It's not snobby. It's just I'm just appreciative.
So, so why don't you start just a little bit like you get out of college?
Yeah.
How do you end up in logistics?
So I went to school, didn't have any idea what I was going to do. I worked with my dad in the kind of the dry cleaning business that he had for many years. And so I knew that I was interested in business and leading people. And we used to have I'd run a couple of stores and got a little bit of management experience. So I went into school and just kind of knew I wanted to do leadership. I ended up getting paired up with a professor that did supply chain, and we did a warehouse tour in Winchester, Kentucky, at like a Save-A-Lot distribution center. And one thing led to another, and I kind of got into it, and got out of school and went to work for a retail grocery company, and went through their management training program and learned all the areas of the warehouse, and then ended up getting pretty good at that. And we were opening distribution centers. So I moved from kind of one location to another, helping open distribution centers as they were coming online. And then one thing led to another. And I got more into the third party side of the business, which doesn't necessarily own and operate the warehouses, but supplies labor and does outsourced activities for some of those distribution centers. And so that's what I've been doing more recently. But it's kind of it in a nutshell.
So when I've been in the business since '97,
Yeah.
and I remember the first time going to like a grocery warehouse and being like, "What the hell do you mean I got to pay somebody to unload it?"
Yeah.
And I was thinking today about one time I'd probably been driving 6 months, and they're like, Well, they want $140. We'll pay you that if you want to do it. Well, that was one and done. I did that one time and never do it again. But I remember the difference in there would just be a bunch of guys standing along the fence and be like, well, those are the lumpers over there. And there was no organization. There was no structure. It was just, hand some random dude whatever he wanted, 150, 250, 350, whatever it was.
Yep.
And I started to see the change where it got more organized and companies started coming in. And so instead of paying a guy, you would say, oh, there's a company name there, and you would pay that company. So had that transition already taken place by the time you came in?
It was, so when I first started working on receiving shifts, they had just brought in like a dedicated service at that distribution center. And before that, it was the same deal. There were a lot of distribution center employees that would also be around on receiving shift and just would, price their own loads and do the work directly with the drivers. And, everybody hated that for some reasons because you just had no consistency, right? So, and you really didn't have any options. So it was like 3 or 4 guys available to unload their trucks. Sometimes it's like a dock mafia situation where they kind of run things, and next thing you know, there's just a guy quoting you crazy prices, so. But yeah, that's what it was.
I met him, I think, didn't you?
Yeah.
When they brought in the service, there were a couple of guys that it impacted significantly. They're pretty upset. So
I don't think drivers appreciate what would have to be the well-oiled machine at it doesn't matter, a Family Dollar, a Lowe's, a Home Depot, a Walmart. I mean, that's what I'm gonna call an ass load of product coming in and out of there.
Yep.
And of course Amazon I think is like its own beast, but is that fair to say that there's Amazon over here and then there's everybody kind of doing their thing?
They're all more similar than you'd probably think on the outside. There's certainly different degrees of it. But it is, there's a lot that goes into those distribution centers, and receiving is just one portion of that,
Yeah.
Most of those distribution centers are just super focused on serving the stores that they're, oriented around, and it all starts there. So like top of mind is your outbound loads. Then do you have all the stuff in the distribution center to fulfill orders? Then, okay, then that's good. Then it's like, oh, we got to receive stuff today, So that's kind of the orientation that you have in those environments. So.
So you graduated college, you got your first job at a grocery warehouse, as I recall, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so talk us how you got through, from a specific company to a warehousing service company. Kind of walk us through that.
I ended up doing it because one of the guys that hired me out of college went and worked for the third party side of things, and so he kind of introduced it to me, and that's kind of what got me comfortable in it. But it made sense. We had a service that we used when I worked on sort of the retail side of things, and there's pretty big space for growth because warehousing just like in trucking, right? Like headcounts at a premium. And so if you got a way to flex labor and do some things where you can kind of help distribution centers keep ticking and have the people element involved, made sense. So
now I think even the retail side that you were working on, didn't you guys address the wait time for drivers? Wasn't that a priority that you guys introduced, and didn't you actually take some pride in that facet of your service? Am I thinking right about that?
Like at Save-A-Lot, like where I was?
Yeah.
There?
Yeah.
I don't remember that specifically. We could have.
Well, I remember us having a conversation. You guys had like some kind of like a 2-hour kind of a, not guarantee, but you really, really looked into situations if it went longer than 2 hours. Am I making that up, or is that?
Yeah, probably making that up. I think. I mean,
I
first
can't
of
nail
all,
him down. Okay.
first of all, it was like 10 or 12 years ago. And
Yeah,
it's
it
just
was.
culturally different.
Yeah.
But I mean, even then, man, it was honestly, you're just so focused on fulfilling orders, outbound trucks. You know, you got stores that are calling you, hey, where's my 2 pieces of
Right.
ribeyes? And then you're trying to manage all the associates in the building, the safety elements, right? Like all that's going on, and
Right.
like literally, the receiving schedule is always just an afterthought. It's like you just expect it to happen.
Well, I remember bitching to you because at that time I was just starting out as a driver. Well, it wasn't 10, it was in 08, 09.
Yeah.
And so I would tell you my situations and you kind of,
Well, and yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying. It wasn't some program. Like I just worked in a distribution center, and
yeah,
we cared about culture and communication and people. So like,
right.
if a guy's been here and he's past his appointment time, and we get that he's got to go run another, we're just going to be nice about it, So
Right,
we always
right.
try to take care of guys. Plus, and particularly at produce loads, you see the same guys,
True.
every day in some cases. But
so can lumpers be bribed to unload your truck?
I mean, yeah, sure. To the extent that anybody could be bribed to do something.
No, yes, yes. They're the best shakedown artists on the planet. I've experienced that.
We like as a company, right? Like we do everything we can to like shut that down. And you certainly now you can't do that and put it through kind of the tracking and paper trail and stuff that you have
especially
now.
with the digital.
Right. But I mean, look, we've had some instances where it's somebody's just, hey, I'm gonna give you cash to go do this. Like, we don't have cameras watching the door.
Well, and I say bribe, but look, there's a lot of different techniques here. I know drivers who every time they go, they stop by Dunkin' Donuts and bring everybody on the dock a big thing of donuts.
Oh, sure.
That's not really bribing, but that earns you favor, and not going in. I mean, we talk all the time about how Landstar BCOs, they get on Facebook and they badmouth their customer. The agent's their customer. They get all they do is trash talk their the customer, and they wonder why they can't get a load. And same thing here. You go to the same dock we've got a driver right now that's actually getting ready to leave, but he always talked about how he went to these same places all the time. He'd get in, everybody else was waiting because every time he went, he gave everybody.
That's
we call that building relationships, buddy.
That's right.
It works everywhere, doesn't it? It's amazing how that works, right? I'll tell you one little story here. I don't even know. Yeah, I think it's probably okay to say. I won't say the place, but I was at a warehouse that his company staffs. Okay, and it was late one night, and I was really, 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 I wanted to get the hell out. Okay, and they're telling me it's going to be like tomorrow or whatever. So that's the first time I ever did it, but I played the Chris card. I literally played the Chris card, and I guess they believed me because I was the next truck in the dock, So, not saying y'all should do that, by the way. Okay.
Everybody's gonna be like, "Hey, I know Chris Long."
I'm gonna get a lot of phone calls.
So, well, in one of the conversations that we had, you and I had in that very room, I believe it was a little foggy. Memory's a little foggy.
Was this involved?
Yeah, lots of it. But one of the things that surprised me is you were telling me how that in a lot of distribution centers, the distribution center itself is not housed with retailers' employees. Like that's a third party managed outfit. And I was like, once you told me that, I'm like, oh, hell, that makes sense. Why would Home Depot or Lowe's or whoever deal with like we do? Landstar doesn't hire our drivers; we hire our drivers. So it kind of makes sense. So, is that kind of the norm that if you're going into a DC, you're dealing with the third party management, and they're taking care of all that, and then the retailers just receiving the product at their stores?
Yeah, I think there's different levels of it. You know what I mean? But I think probably the majority of places that certainly on the food side of things, there's going to be a third party probably managing the unloading or some portion of the business. And there's lots of distribution centers that are completely outsourced. Like it's a full third party. It's a contract just on the number of units that are going through this building, and then the third party does everything. And then there's there's some of the buildings that we work in where we might do the order selection or the receiving or the auditing. Different work functions or different shifts. So yeah, it's very common. Very common.
Well, I know a lot of the drivers on here are going to want you to hear your answer about this, but why is it that it takes sometimes 4, 6, 8 hours to get unloaded when you're dealing with the lumber? I mean, walk us through why that occurs, and what's behind the scene there. I mean, why can't it be quote fixed?
Mm-hmm.
And a second part of that question is, everybody, a lot of people in this industry, they want the government to get involved to fix the problem with detention.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to that a little bit about what that really would look like. Let's do that sec. I should answer that too.
All right, so
go back to question one
again.
Well, why does it take so long? Why does it take 4, 6, 8 hours or longer?
Yeah, I mean, so I guess the place to start is the person that's actually unloading the truck, right? So like we have a lot of folks that do it, and all of our guys are paid like on a container basis usually, or a truck basis. So it's not just they just get paid this an amount per hour and that's it. It's usually based on either the complexity and the number of SKUs and the number of pallets and how much breakdown work is on that load. So they're trying to push through those loads as quickly as they can. So it's generally never the person that's actually unloading the truck being slow or not being on top of things. Like they are very motivated to want to go do that,
Okay.
So what happens, more often than not is, it's a part of the supply chain but it's a part that's flowing like all together, right? So again, like most of the food warehouses are 24/7 operations, meaning they're shipping out of one side of the building and receiving on the other side of the building, and they're flowing it through.
Right.
And when you get in a short staffing situation, which like with COVID and the way the workforce is now happens a lot, if you're going to reduce capacity, you're going to reduce capacity not on outbound orders because you've got about 48 hours to make that up. You got it. Like you can't miss your appointment time at the store, or you can't short them their product. So you put all your resources there and then you work backwards. And where the resources generally aren't is on the receiving side because everybody ran out of hours. And, look, if we receive a PO a day late, we can recover from that because we have some safety stock, right? But an outbound shipment, a store misses their weekly egg delivery. Well, now, they're out for the week.
So that priority is not on receiving, but on shipping.
Correct. Yep.
Even though the receiving guys are incentivized,
correct.
Their problem is they can't do anything about the other side, and the process side,
and
right?
if the other side's bad enough, we'll pull folks out of receiving and then they'll go ship orders, and just because that's where the priority is just in the nature of things, so that's it a lot of times. And so that's the two extremes, but in the middle is generally inefficiencies or like poor engineering and like dock flow. So, when you're talking to warehouse guys, when we're thinking about how can we make there's probably 10 parts of you bring the pallet in, you label it, you put it away in like a reserve location, an order comes over. We have to know how much is available for picking versus how much we have on hand so that somebody goes and lets down that product. And then it ultimately gets loaded on a truck and shipped out. There's just a lot of folks managing that process, and we're trying to keep it flowing all the time. But if you get one kink in that process, the whole warehouse can really slow down and shut down. And so that's generally is kind of what's going on, right? So maybe we receive something wrong. It was 100 cases on a pallet. It ended up being, it's really 1,000. So we created 100 pallets based on the quantities we entered. Then that may throw off in the system. Oh, we need to allocate 100 pallets for this section of the warehouse. We can't put any more product away. Well, now we're just stuck on the dock. So it ends up being a lot more stuff like that than it is, anything else.
So I'm going to push the government thing away a little bit more because I want to talk about what you just said. Because a lot of guys ask this question: why don't they ship it the way they want it? Why do we have to unpalletize it and repalletize it while I'm sitting at the dock not getting paid?
Right. It's a really good question. It just comes down to cost, So like in the grocery business, we'd put in an order to one of the big cereal manufacturers, right? And so on that truck would be full of cereal, but it would be probably 24 different kinds of cereal, right? So if it was just all cornflakes and it was loaded floor to ceiling, you could just pull it off one pallet at a time and you'd be good to go. But what ends up happening is it's not, right? So we got to sort and segregate and break all that down. And then, obviously they're having to do that because if they just shipped all one SKU, it'd increase the shipping cost. So it just doesn't make good sense. So you got to break all that down. And then the storage configurations in the buildings drive a lot of it too, right? So it may come in a full pallet configuration, but it's like baby food. Well, we ship 2 cases of baby food a year. We're not going to take up a big area of selection space to have that product. So we're only going to allow it to be one layer, right? Because we want to be able to stack it in with a whole bunch of other things. So a lot of it we're creating breakdown because we have to store it that way in the warehouse,
So, excuse me. So it's shipped efficiently to fill the truck up. You've got square feet in that truck that has to be used. If it's open, it's wasted space.
Correct.
So we package it in a way that gets a full truckload to a DC. Then we've got to go in there. We don't. You have to go in there and you have to take that efficiency of shipping and break it down in the efficiency of processing.
Sure.
Would that be a safe way of explaining it?
Well, one thing that I'm seeing that I didn't really see before when you were talking about serving the store, well, the distribution center exists to serve the store, not the receiving trucks.
Correct.
Yep. I mean, we talk so much about customer service, knowing who your customer is, putting their needs ahead of your own. Well, that distribution center does not exist to serve the needs of the guy driving the truck, bringing in the product. It exists to serve the people that it's going out. And so just like on that very example with, you've got a cereal manufacturer that's got 30 different brands, well, they're probably the order made by the customer is probably not going to be like, oh, well, we need 16 pallets of Frosted Flakes. Right. No, you need Frosted Flakes and Corn Flakes and this flakes and that flakes and all the different kind of. So it gives me a different perspective, imagining myself now backing into that dock, thinking about that outflow, that if that outflow is bad, then what I've got really doesn't matter, Sure.
So like in grocery, we price our trucks out a lot based on starting pallets and ending pallets. So like our averages are like every time you're pulling off 21 pallets, like pallet positions off a truck, right? So there's kind of 21 starting pallets. On average for us, that breaks down into 60 pallets once you complete the breakdown, right? So that's just kind of how much upstacking and multiple SKUs are in there.
So you're going from 21 to 60.
Correct.
Almost.
So there's 21 pallet positions on the truck.
Right.
When you get that,
but that's got to be 60 different.
It's 61 different.
Interesting.
And I mean, look, some loads are hundreds, right? like some of the paper loads, it's cosmetics. I mean, cosmetics, you literally don't ever have more than 3 or 4 cases of eyeliner because there's a bazillion of them in there. You know? So, but yeah.
Interesting. So here's a question, Chris. This fellow is asking about with a certain company. He makes more in detention than the lumper fee. How can you stay in business or making a profit paying more detention than they're charging to unload? Well, let me stop there. Okay. Who pays the detention? Where does the money for the detention come from?
So detention is part of what a lot of our customers and us would call like a vendor compliance program. So these companies that are buying goods, that own a distribution center, they'll put in fees and things like that, not necessarily as a revenue generating thing, but more to drive compliance around appointment delivery times, overshorts and damages, things like that, which really protects that distribution center in their ability to continue to flow their dock and do those things. So usually it's part of those. It really gets the person that pays that is the shipper.
So it's not Capstone or not any service, lumper service. They're not paying that So typically the shipper is who that money comes from.
Yeah.
So the question,
And it's all score, and they also use it. So they look at all those charges and they put a scorecard on the brokerage or the trucking company, and they say, "Hey, look, you got to cut us a check for this much."
Right.
You know,
Right.
So,
So I know all the numbers that you work with. So I know all this data is looked at. I know
Oh,
all
big
this
time.
stuff is analyzed to the nickel, you
Yeah.
know, because I know what you do.
And I was going to mention one of the big things that's changed since I started is that 10 years ago it became a really big thing that the driver's experience, particularly in like food service buildings, really impacted the cost of shipping. Right, like it started to be recognized that, oh man, we get this detention fee, or we get this whatever kind of situations, these big delays every time we go into this facility. And you would have people that would just not participate in bids, right? Like, hey man, it's just not worth us to go do that.
Right.
And so then our customers really got engaged around what can we do to improve the driver experience. So big time investments in like bathrooms, facilities, guard shack and all that stuff.
And that's a spinoff of the ELD.
Right.
The data is there now because there's no question about how long a truck's sitting in that lot.
Yeah.
So I mean, from a freight broker standpoint, they're also making rate adjustments based on how good or bad the experience is with a shipper. So it works both ways. You're saying the same thing. I remember you telling me you guys were doing a survey, driver level survey.
And we still do that. And so, and what's interesting is every single one of our customers loves the driver survey, wants it in their facilities, looks and reviews the data every period, and they make decisions based on it. Like, hey, we need to go make an investment, or we need to go to address this. And if it's positive, then they're going to their vendors and saying, hey, look at what a positive place it is to deliver here. It's not going to impact rates. You can have a driver that's dedicated on this route and come back and it be a good deal. And
right.
So they're using it to try to drive down rates and get good, partnership with their,
well, I'm going to get back to the government question, but Rocky's got a question I think we should look at. Plus I've got a follow-up to his. CDL, why does the truck have to sit at the dock empty for hours while they count and stack? If it's short, the driver can't shit out another box of products. Can't they work with the shipper and count while the truck is back on the road? That's it. We get this question.
Yeah, I mean, none of that's good. Like, that's all not really how it should go. But so a lot of companies are moving towards what we call subject to count. I'm sure you guys have heard subject to count. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, unfortunately, there's just not a lot of that going on. And particularly where it really becomes a problem is some of the vendors, like in, how organic and these niche, fancy kind of, all we make is honey, locally grown honey. Yeah. So you see those in the grocery store,
boutique.
So, but what that means is that's just some dude selling that, right? So now you're setting this guy up as a vendor, and you don't know if he's going to pay.
Yeah.
This is the first time we're receiving honey from the dude, right?
Right.
So, so he's not going to be set up as subject to count, right? Like, we don't know what he's going to send us. So we get his stuff in, it's damaged, whatever it is. The only recourse that they kind of have is I can put it back on the truck where it came from, which again, it's bullshit. Like, what are they going to go do with
Nobody's
it?
going to do that. Yeah.
Right.
It's kind of like you bought something for the first time,
Right.
But that's a really fringe scenario. Unfortunately, if it's not set up subject to count, like you kind of, your only recourse is to document it. Like, those bills of lading are everything, right? So before they give them back to you, because if they give them back to you and it's not short or damaged or documented correctly, then they don't have any recourse. Like, hey, you guys received it. So unfortunately, that's why
we encounter. I call it the security guard mentality. And Chris Pope's going to know what I'm talking about here. I don't know if you will, but we encounter a lot of territorialism in this industry.
Yeah,
and
people that were bullied in high school and now have authority.
They have a little fake badge and a taser, and so if you're on my property, you're going to play by my rules. Okay, even though those rules might be the most craziest thing you've ever heard of, that's how it's going to be. And do we see that? I know you can only speak from what your experience is, but I mean, does that factor in here at all, that you've got personalities there that, they're like, hey, this is my dock. By God, I'm gonna,
Yeah, I mean that's certainly a thing, but like honestly, holding the truck until everything's sorted and counted, like that's not no somebody's not making a decision. Like you'd lose your job, right? Like if honestly, if the receiver let the driver go, didn't document it on the bills, and then it's $100,000 worth of product was missing. I mean, you're probably not going to survive that, unfortunately.
If it ain't wrote down, it didn't happen.
So it's not even a culture issue on that. It's just like nobody with good receiving practices
all
is going to do that.
So I'm gonna go with.
I'll tell you one that chaps my ass, and this is mainly on the shipping side. Is you'll go in and they won't let you on the dock.
Mhm.
They won't let you do anything, and then when you go to get the bills, no SLC, no shipper load and count. And I'm like, okay, well, let me count the bitch, or I'm going to write shipper load and count because y'all loaded it and y'all counted it. But that's that great way. It's like, hey, just put it on the driver. We screw him, and of course that's why drivers get such a chapped ass about this.
Yeah,
is they get put in the middle. The shipper's on one side, the receiver's on the other side. They don't like each other anyway. And then here's the driver stuck in the middle. And I saw it so much, especially during COVID. That really, pushed the authoritarians. Me and Richie were talking about this one at that battery place up in Pennsylvania. And they had this witch. And if you went in there without your mask, and of course you could have a chin diaper, that was fine. But she'd slam the door in your face, if you didn't have your mask on. And of course we'd go in there without one just to piss her off. But boy, she loved that power. That was, she was really enjoying that a little too much.
No,
but
I mean, that's a
like,
thing, for sure.
like you said, that if a driver could be in any one of these positions. That's what Larry always says. You become an owner operator. Now all of a sudden you're all these people you've always hated. Now you're the load planner. Now you're the maintenance coordinator. Now you're all of these things. Well, if we would put ourselves in the position of the receiving clerk, the shipping clerk, the buyer, all of these people that have got to keep this massive machine running. And of course, just in time. That started in the late 90s when I came in, and we stopped warehousing. We just used the trucks as warehouses and bring them trucks in. And then 2020 hits, and the American public screwed up the most well-oiled machine in about 10 days, with a toilet. Why don't you talk about toilet paper? What the hell was going on there? Like, do you have
It wasn't a distribution thing. Everybody went and bought it all. I don't know why everybody did that.
Okay, so that begs the question.
People bought more than there was. That's what happened.
I've always heard, and of course it's a truck driver thing, so that's probably bullshit. But there was always people say that 5,000 loads in, 5,000 loads out of New York City every day. If you shut New York City down, if you shut the trucks down for 5 days, New York City would starve to death. Okay, Now maybe that's true, maybe it's not, but it does lead me to this question. So an average distribution center is going to have probably a certain period of time's worth of product. That if the trucks stop coming, the front door is going to shut down in a period of time.
Yeah.
Is that kind of standard? Like you have a week, you have 2 weeks, a month?
It varies based because there's all sorts of distribution format, but like in grocery, for example, usually like your average days that you have something in inventory for like produce is usually like 14 days. In the dairy, it's usually like maybe a little closer to like 20 days. And then frozen and dry goods, you may have most of that stuff you're going to have on hand for like 30 plus days, 30, 45 days. So I think that's like in a food situation, that's what it is.
So when 2020 hits and the toilet paper thing happens, we basically just wiped out whatever that supply was, right? Because everybody went crazy. People were trying to restock. And then we get to a point to where we emptied the distribution centers probably.
Well,
and
that was a dry good. So what's the shelf life on dry good, Chris?
Yeah. I mean, there's none really for toilet paper.
I mean, how much would a DC have? I mean,
Just as much as that's the thing. Like, we didn't actually use more toilet paper. Like, we just
No.
went and bought it.
we
You
bought
know
it
what I
all.
mean?
Yeah.
So
Still got it in the garage. Okay.
So it just, there's so much in process of being available to the public. We got all that was out there and all that, and it took like 2 weeks to catch up. But there's this accordion effect that happens, right? So there's the people that buy these truckloads of goods are just they're buyers, right? So that's their job, is they put orders together, and they're humans just like everybody else. So when, say, they look and they see toilet paper sales are through the roof, they have no inventory, and they already cut 2 POs to get new toilet paper, but they still haven't gotten the POs in, they'll cut another one. And that happens
just
all
digging
the time.
a hole deeper. Yeah.
And so oftentimes you see these shortages then backed up with over ordering.
Right.
And then that's shit sitting everywhere. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, but yeah, that happens all the time. Like, what I started out at Save a Lot, and part of their buying strategy was they would buy lots of product because they could get a really good deal on it. But then we'd use our warehousing to hold it because we couldn't sell it all at once. So we dealt with that all the time.
All right. So back to trailers. Okay. So especially at Landstar, because Landstar doesn't have terminals with extra trailers sitting around.
Mhm.
As a BCO, your trailer, you have a trailer, you let it go, you have no trailer.
Mhm.
And getting one back sometimes can take 10 to 20, 30 days. All right.
Mhm.
So you take a drop and hook load and you go to a warehouse where it's supposed to be drop and hook freight,
Mhm.
and you do your drop, but then there's no empty to take care of.
Mhm.
I mean, do you guys have any part in that? What I mean, do you just talk me through your side of how that happens and what, I mean, why?
So, the folks running the inside of the warehouse usually aren't. There's an operations team that's managing the activities that happen within the warehouse, and there's typically a transportation team that manages all of the outbound routes, inbound routes, but also the fleet. So it's usually not the same people, right? So, so what would happen is, those guys, that transportation folks are tasked with, they kind of have all their equipment, on a piece of paper or a spreadsheet, right? And then for all 24 hours a day, they've kind of got what's going to happen with that, right? So it's got it's available now. It's got dunnage, so we got to pull that off from a store delivery. Then we got to get it in the door. It's going to be in the door for an hour and a half. Then that's going to go to the store delivery, blah, 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 blah. So as you can imagine, with all that going on, your store delivery gets tied up in traffic or whatever coming back, or your driver calls in sick. Sometimes one of those routes just gets wiped, and so then so do you have an extra trailer that you stand by with? Do you not? Have you already used that? So it's usually something like that. But, or it could be that the person didn't do a very good job managing it.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna ask that government question. So I am now the United States.
Is it like a conspiracy?
Whatever. Whoever. I guess who's the transportation dude? Oh, Buttigieg. What's his name?
Close enough.
Buttigieg.
Who's this?
The transportation Secretary of Transportation.
Yeah.
What's the first name?
Just stop trying to say his name. Just
Buttigieg.
Yeah.
He was a mayor in
South Bend, Indiana.
Before he got this position.
Probably never seen a warehouse or a truck.
No idea what a truck looks like. Has no idea. Well, anyway, I'm him, and I'm saying, okay, tomorrow, Mr. Warehousing dude, you cannot detain trucks anymore. 2 hours, and somebody's paying. Can't do it. They have to be out of here in 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
What's that look like? How's that? I mean, back up and say this, okay?
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't happen in your world, but that happens in our world, okay? 2018 December, every truck in the United States had to have an ELD. Bam. Mm-hmm. All right. Mm-hmm. And we can cite other things. These regulations come down, and there's no consideration to the unintended consequences. But this is such, and right now, of course, the problem with the supply chain is detention at your DCs. That's the problem. Okay. Now I'm being tongue in cheek here. But if that's the problem, and the government correcting it without considering unintended consequences, go, okay, we're going to fix the problem. You no longer we're mandating that you no longer can detain trucks. 2 hours, they have to be out of here. What's that do to the supply chain? What's that do to your, side of the house?
I mean, it's in no one's best interest for a truck to be there longer than 2 hours, So I don't think anybody's motivated to not do it. But I think the point is that there's diffusion in responsibility and who actually foots the bill, right? And so that's what kind of creates those scenarios where it's, the person that's causing the delay is not the one that ends up paying for it in those instances, right? Because he just gets caught up in this web of stuff. So what you're talking about would kind of bypass that and just force it to go, hey, look, this is going to be your problem. You got to deal with it. I would tell you that, that's one way to handle it, and I get it, and that certainly would help, in some ways, but also just making a law isn't the best answer always either, because what I'd like to think is that there's more progressive companies out there that take the driver relationship more seriously. And so because they're doing that and they're trying to own their supply chain, they have a positive experience that doesn't cost a whole bunch of money and everybody benefits from. And then you'd like to see somebody like that win, right? Because they do things the right way and they don't create extra cost, and we just want to go do business with them.
But you're saying the market will take care of itself,
right? Well,
okay.
It should.
But there's a lot of people, that, and probably, I don't know.
But look, you could, but then you just, I don't know, how much would it really change it?
Well, okay.
I've noticed right now. that
it costs somebody that much now.
Well, but let's talk about that, because detention currently is not guaranteed. Okay, even at Landstar, we track it. Listen, I probably chase it more than anybody, and we probably get it, I'm going to guess 30% of the time. This would make it mandatory that somebody paid that detention. Now look, I'm not advocating this. I'm just talking like the normal truck driver with a Peterbilt hat on my head.
The other side of that, though, is like, okay, why 2 hours? Why 2 hours?
That's been the industry standard as long as I've been around.
It would have to be a much
arbitrary number.
It is, but if you really wanted to do that, it'd have to be more sophisticated than we're thinking about it right now, right? Like certain types of loads, you probably maybe couldn't qualify for that, but
right.
So.
One thing I've noticed is that it's become a trip planning tool is Google reviews. Now you have to adjust your comprehension of those, because generally people that have a good experience don't talk about it.
Right.
So you have to weight that correctly, that when you see somebody's got if I see somebody's got 3.5-star reviews, and I see a couple of positive ones, then I have to notch that up, because only the pissed off people are going to leave their reviews.
Sure.
But I look for certain things. And so I think you're right. That's the one thing that a lot of the people that love regulation and think that that's the magical, we'll have the state wave its magical wand and everything will be okay. You're not thinking about the people that do a good job. Now their incentive now to do better is gone.
Right. And you'd love to see them kick ass, right? Like, man, you guys figured this out and did this right. Like, let them benefit. And, I just like to think
we're pretty big advocates of the blockchain here. And one of the things that we think the blockchain would solve is this problem without the government being involved, because the data would be there. The automatic adjustment for the experience could be there in the rate adjustments based on experience,
Well, and go one step further. Okay.
Be careful what you ask for on that front, right?
Right. But think about this.
Your compliance on delivery time
absolutely
is going to be
really, and again, but that's why the average truck driver wants the government to fix it, because they don't want to be held accountable. They want you to be held accountable. Right. But that's the problem in our industry. We want you to fix it. I don't want to be part of that. Go ahead, Chris. I'm sorry.
Okay, so think about this though. Let's go even further back from the truck. Go to the buyer. Okay, if a buyer has better information with which to make that choice of whether or not to issue that PO, that has a ripple effect that would affect that truck even showing up, because maybe that truck wasn't ordered because that truck wasn't needed. That's the one thing that I love about blockchain, is that generally in financial forecasting or any other kind of forecasting, we have to look back behind us and say, okay, what happened 12 months ago? What happened, and and then how will we look forward based on what happened last year? Well, hell, the variables can change in an instant. I think blockchain gives us the ability to look in real time. And so when people are freaking out about toilet paper, well, you can look, well, we know where the toilet paper is. It's not a guess. And then we can go, okay, well, we don't need to issue that PO today. We might need to issue it a week from now. If we can fix that front end problem, I think the ripple effect goes further beyond, because, like in a trucking example, the closer you get the truck to the actual shipper, the more money the truck makes, the better service the shipper gets. If we get rid of middlemen that aren't necessarily, it's not that they're doing anything wrong or immoral or bad, but I think a lot of times they end up making decisions that they have to make with bad information. They're like, I'm going to push this button and whatever happens, happens. And then what's the ripple effect beyond that? So
sure,
I would love to see more efficiency on what's going out the front of the distribution center as much as what's coming in, because now I've connected those two. What's going out the front door affects what's coming in the back door. The front door stuff has to go out. There's no way around that. I don't know if we ever talked about this. Are you familiar or done any study on what happened after Katrina with Walmart? So there's a guy, I think it was David Horowitz, I think. If you Google search Walmart to the rescue, you'll find this piece that this guy wrote.
Okay.
And basically the way he lays it out is, as Katrina was bearing down and everybody knew it was going to be bad, Walmart had a meeting in Bentonville. And I'm thinking the storm hit on Saturday, maybe. I think it hit on the weekend. Anyway, a couple days before the storm gets there, Bentonville has a meeting. Okay. And they're like, okay, we have the data on what goes into these stores that are in the path. We know the medicines. We have all the data as to what the most stuff is sold here. So they start loading trucks. They call their store managers and they say, you're going to be cut off from us. You're not going to have any communication. You're not going to be able to call and ask for our advice. You're going to have to do the best you can with what you have. And so he has a story about one store manager who hired a bulldozer to drive through the side of her building that was completely destroyed, to break into the pharmacy to take all of the drugs out into the parking lot to the makeshift hospital that had just been set up, right? Now, if she'd worked for FEMA, they'd put her in jail. But she worked for Walmart and she got a trophy, right? So there's this picture. There was one of the parish, it's Louisiana, so it's parish constables.
Right.
This guy was quoted in I think it was the New York Times. If the federal government had showed up like Walmart did, we wouldn't be in this mess. Mm-hmm. And there's this picture of Walmart trucks lined up on the interstate as far as you can see. The storm comes through. Here comes the Walmart trucks. Food, water, clothing, medicine, the whole deal. Because, number one, they had a relationship with the customer. And Home Depot and Lowe's did something similar. But Walmart had the stuff. And so as soon as the storm blows through, here comes this parade of Walmart trucks. Was that ever on NBC News? Hell no. It was Bush saying, Brownie, you're doing a great job. And you're like, no, he didn't. And the mayor of New Orleans is hiding in the top of a building somewhere. I mean, the whole thing was an absolute shit show. But Walmart had all of that data. They had all of that product. And they just were like, okay, we'll just move it in here. And
they knew what already moved, because that's, they had that data. So they knew the product that was used as those stores.
Yeah. That was fascinating
I do think
study.
like situations like Katrina, and I was involved with more like on the Home Depot side of like their hurricane response, but like that, and then just even COVID, you know, warehousing and trucking and supply chain in general. I mean, you think about people that make it happen, you know, kind of the when things go bad, like we had folks going into distribution centers when COVID was raging, right? Well, we got to
Yeah.
ship food, and then you guys are still running trucks. I mean, so
Yeah. They loved us for a little while. Now they hate us again.
no, I really do think there's some goodwill there.
So you guys have a broker side too. What do you think about the quote driver shortage? What do you think about? Give us and you don't have to give us any official numbers. I know you really can't do that, but from your perspective, what do you think about? Because we're reading all this. I mean, everybody in the trucking industry is predicting this dooming bloodbath. Because fuel's gotten double, rates are falling because of capacity. I'm here. You can address that. So the average owner operator who's used to hauling freight for $5, $6, $7 a mile is now going to be doing it for $2 or $3 a mile. Some of those guys just cannot do that. Their operation costs are too high to do that. So what's your forecast for this next few months, or and with your also your broker side? I mean, are you privy to anything there that the outlook?
So I kind of know what we generally think is going to happen, but I don't know. I'm not an expert. Like I don't know necessarily why. Like I don't, I just know what we're saying.
Right.
Couldn't tell you if it's right or not. But I think what we're kind of liking what's going on a little bit because capacity seems like it's there and volume's a little bit down. And all that means for us is like on the warehousing side, when capacity really gets strained, you see like the spot market goes way up, right?
Oh, yeah.
So you don't the volatility and risk in freight just gets really high because people are having to do crazy things to get freight covered. So now that it's kind of balanced out a little bit, now we see a big return to big freight bids. All lanes are covered, and then you're kind of bidding really on, and service means more. Compliance means more. So you just get a little bit, kind of get our supply chain back to day to day running normally, which it hadn't been for a while. So
right. Well,
that's what they see is, I guess,
yeah,
capacity coming
yeah.
back a little
I'm
bit.
not sure some of our guys are going to want to hear that, but we talk about it all the time. I mean, there's this high cycle has gone on now for 4 or 5 years, and the average cycle length in this industry is about 18 months. It's so we're on an extended uptick bubble, whatever you want to call it. The concerns are, does that mean that the downside is going to be equally extended or worse? What's it going to take to regulate the capacity and the market again? Because when what has to happen here, okay, is that the capacity has to adjust. Usually that means small fleets and owner operators, because they're usually the ones that are undercapitalized. They're also the ones that are on the spot market. So the big fleets, they've got all the contracts. The contract stuff is not going to change that much right now, like the spot market does. But if you came into this business in the last 3 or 4 years and bought your truck and built your business model around what they thought was normal, and they're getting ready to find out what normal looks like, and then you throw in this fuel thing that hasn't been this way since 2009, it's a pretty dreary outlook, for a lot of these guys. And we said this all along. People when in 2019, it kind of came with the ELD mandate. All of a sudden, carriers and owner, they could pretty much name their price. It was like the ball was in our court. We had the goods. You had to pay the price. Yep. We said, look, that is going to change. That's going to go back, and that's what we're looking at now. We maintain a lot of our contract freight, even though it was less than what we could have done spot market for, to maintain those relationships, because we knew we would end up going back to them. Yep. So, I mean, what's it look like from your side now that you guys are going to hold the cards, and you're not going to have to be held ransom by a carrier,
The contracts give y'all the warm and fuzzies, like when you're not having to deal with this crazy spot market, you can just get contracts and then you're more happy.
The contracts, we like stability and like a little longer term thinking, right? So we like to know that we're going to have these many lanes for the next 6 to 9 to 12 months. It's just in the spot market, it always seems fleeting, and you can kind of get upside down a little bit. So it's just a kind of a business mix shift for us more than anything, but we like it because it's a little better longer term outlook. So.
Well, William Haynes, Chris, we need an app. Help me out. I can't read that.
To crowdsource wait times at DCs, it would be useful for both truckers and warehouse. Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
Well, isn't there some of that already out there, Chris?
Yeah, I think maybe Trucker Path does that
or something.
Yeah,
isn't there something that does that now?
But it's kind of garbage in, garbage out. You know what I mean? It's like it's
Hmm.
one of those things without blockchain.
The data is not reliable.
You have to have a centralized authority.
Yeah.
And everybody has to agree on the parameters, and then everybody has to input the data. And when I went down to Freight Waves early 2018, and they had that sonar thing, and they're buying all this ELD data. Well, you don't have to consciously do that. The ELD is just recording all the time, so they're buying the metadata, and they're going through. And there had been this article that had come out that said we can identify this. At that time, it was the city that wasted the most driver's time. And I'm talking to the guy. I'm talking to this MIT nerd that was going through all this data. And I'm like, so you can tell me the city? He's like, oh, I can give you the address. I'm like, really? And he was like, oh, yeah. And he named off the company. He just was, and I'm like, why is that not in the article? But they weren't willing to pull people's pants down, probably for some sort of defamation or something. But the data's there. Somebody needs to do something with it. That would be handy. Yeah. But I'm sure they probably are on the backside, like you said. I mean, I've got to believe that you guys have got analytics, and there's probably somebody getting that metadata that's probably helping. Because if you're one of the good guys, you want to be able to say, hey, we're one of the good guys. Here's the data. See, we're not like those bastards over there.
Yeah, and I think absolutely the data exists on that sort of stuff, and it's used. It doesn't ever solve the one-off, but it helps. Certainly reward facilities and companies that are doing it the right way.
So what's next for Chris Long?
Nothing, man. Just gonna hang out with you, get you to play some more golf.
Chris has given us 4 beautiful grandchildren. 4 through 8 is Mackenzie 8? Yeah. So I sure enjoy coming to Chicagoland to be with my grandchildren. Obviously, you see why I'm so proud of my son. And he a little side note. Let's discuss a little bit of side note. Chris is also an investor in Blue Ribbon. He owns 2 of the trucks that we operate, so he's kind of dipping his foot in the swimming pool of the trucking side as well. So, which has been interesting to work with him.
Yeah, tell me about that, Chris. Tell me what you really think. It's been what, 18 months?
Started in October of 20, wasn't it? Yeah, October of 20.
Yeah. That sounds right.
Yeah. So.
His first truck was a 2012 Glider, Columbia, with under 100,000. Under 1 million miles, and it's turned out to be a really, really good truck, And then the second truck was a 99. Y'all heard the story of us going to Michigan to buy the truck and him writing the check wrong. That's him. And
that's something else to be fixed by blockchain too.
Yeah, that's true.
We recovered. We made it happen.
Yeah.
It was.
It should not be that difficult to give somebody money.
It was hard.
It was hard.
It was hard.
It was
But
hard.
it's been good, man. I mean, listen, you do all the legwork, so I get a lot of extra help, but it's been great. It's been good. You guys have a lot of expertise, manage it well. So
Has there been things about, like, seeing, because you're financially tied to it, like, has it anything surprised you about it? Or
man, this guy Carl is expensive.
Yeah, I know one thing. An
And-
invoice from
And he
Carl at
likes
the end of the year
he
last
likes
year.
to send several invoices at the same time
Yeah,
we'll work on
after a
that.
few months, right?
after a few months.
And the invoice is not an invoice; it's a diary.
It is.
Yeah.
There's lots of detail. It's very well documented.
Yeah,
No, it's been good. It's been good.
he's worth every penny.
We're yes, he is. Yes, he is. Well, speaking of analytics, we'll brag a little bit here. We got a sponsor, as you well know. It's Pittsburgh Power. We are now an OPS. Well, I've been OPS distributor for years, but we're now also the max mileage fuel-borne catalyst distributor. All those products are on our website, and we've got a special right now with the OPS. If you don't know what that means, we did a complete podcast on it a couple of issues back, and we explained the entire process. So check that out. Between now and the end of May, $50 off and free shipping if you order the OPS through us using the code OPS 108. That was the episode we did, by the way, 108. The max mileage, we've got the gallons. We also have the ability to refill. If you want to run by Hurricane and give Chris a call, he'll meet you down there and refill your jug, save you some money.
We got to get we don't have all those on the website yet, but that's something else on my list to get done in the next
Well,
week.
even if it's not there, just reach out to us and we'll take care. We don't have to do it on the website. We can do it through email or whatever. So if you're coming through there and you need this stuff, let us know. So want to remind you of the July 16, 17 weekend. It's a Saturday and Sunday in Hurricane, West Virginia. We're going to have the live event 2022. It'll be the only event we have this year. We're too busy. We're only doing this because we promised everybody we would do it. We're too busy now with 14 trucks and 2 more coming on that this just takes a lot of time. And as much as we enjoy doing it, it's very time consuming. So we're going to do what we said and have the one, but this is the only one this year. So that will be up on the website this week. Get your money in, hold your seat. Last year we had to shut it off at 30, 32, I think it was. This year we think we can go 50, maybe even 75 in the facility that we got. But we don't know that till we start getting the things in. So it's 2 full days of complete immersion in the lunatic business model. The timing couldn't be better. There's going to be a lot of people who, if they don't get control of their cost, they're going to have a rough time with the economy, what it's going to look like. We've got some specific suggestions on how to survive that, even if you don't have a lunatic truck. I think we can work with you. We're going to have some guests there. We're going to cover a lot of different topics. I don't know I probably can't cover any of them yet because we don't really have them signed yet, but we got a lot of good things coming for you. So we will be doing the podcast live Friday night from the hotel there. And we do know this, we're going to have a couple of our mentoring clients that have a lot to say about working with us that are going to be on that podcast. So one more time, we do have a couple of trucks that we're bringing on that we can take some applications on. And just got word that we are going to have an MD alignment guy there at the facility, not only doing a program, but lining up trucks in the parking lot. So Rocky Rockefeller, our truck owner and MD alignment specialist from Jacksonville, you see it right there. He just committed to being there. So that's our first vendor that we can officially announce. So it'd be a great time to pick his brain and understand more about the MD alignment system and the importance of having, your truck properly aligned. And then if you really want to have one done, we'll have to schedule these with him in advance because he can't do a ton of them in 2 days, but we can get a few of them done. So we'll sign you up and hold you a spot for that. So, but the truck we got, like I say, if you're interested in the program and learning how to become, successful owner operator BCO at Landstar, without the risk and with a lot of benefits. Reach out to us. We also do have a team opportunity. We announced it today. It's on our website. It's on the Facebook page. We do have a team truck coming up 1st of July that, and we don't usually have team opportunities, but we do have one coming up. So if you're interested in that, give us a call, reach out to us. Chris, thank you for being here. Enjoyed being with you this weekend. And I guess from a undisclosed location in greater Chicagoland, we'll bid you good night.
All right. We'll see everybody next weekend. Be Sunday evening, same time, same channel. See everybody then.
Cheers.